would not share it with the American public. And if you knew you had captured on videotape actual UFOs from the space shuttle, would you break that oath and share the truth with the American public?
Well, first of all, I'm claustrophobic, so I doubt I'll go up into space. But if I were to go up into space, I would have to say, look, what we see up there and what we find, we're just gonna have to throw out that law. There's a law.
According to NASA's Space Act, signed on July 29th, 1958, Section 102, Paragraph C, Subparagraph A, we read, information obtained or developed by the administrator in the performance of his functions under this Act shall be available for public inspection, except information authorized or required by federal statute to be withheld and information classified to protect the national security. Would NASA consider contact with an extraterrestrial civilization a threat to national security? And if they did, would they classify it to protect the national security?
So I would have to say, no, I couldn't agree to non-disclosure. I really couldn't if I saw something or photographed something. But I can see where other people, wanting to do the best for their country, wanting to serve their country in a legitimate way would say, yes, I will not disclose. And this is based on the Brookings Institution report from the late 50s, which, Congress commissioned, which said that if the existence of UFOs were revealed to the American populace would not be able to handle it. They would defy church authority, police authority, military authority, governmental authority. They wouldn't go to work. They would sort of cast aside the mayors and governors and presidents and go, we want to talk directly to these beings. We feel that these beings should, have their case put to us directly by them themselves. I think the American populace today is ready to handle the concept that what we live in, the four dimensions of height, length, width, and time, is not all there is. There are more dimensional realities. There are advanced beings with machines that can skip from dimension to dimension, from galaxy to galaxy, using the Einstein-Rosen bridges, the wormholes. I think the American people, I think half of them know, and I think the other half, with the proper evidence, would be ready to accept it. It's going to take a mass sighting for the U.S. government to finally say, look, we're going to come on side with France, Belgium, Mexico, Turkey, Iran, and we're going to tell the truth, and we're going to reveal what happened to Tom Mantell when he went up in his P-51, what happened in the Great Lakes when I believe it was an F-104, I believe, was scrambled over the Great Lakes in the 60s. What happened to him? I think that if you have that type of sighting, then there'll be no choice.
Interdimensional travel. I mean, not just traveling through our dimension, but going into alternate dimensions, Dan. Would you, and if you could, a spaceship arrives in your yard, and you've got the barbecue out, and there's the steak on the grill, and they want you right now to come with them and go into another dimension, and to move forward and backwards on the timeline, to go forward in time and backward in time. If you could move forward and backward in time, are there any events in human history that you would interfere with, that you would change to alter the destiny and the course of humanity?
Well, I wouldn't want to go back in time and change anything, because that would be a tampering that I wouldn't serve mankind well. Although there are many horrors, of course. Wouldn't you have loved to have caught Hitler as a 15-year-old and have him drown in a river? Because then we could have solved the Holocaust problem, and then World War II may not have... Well, look, there were two guys. There was Otto Dinkel. You ever heard of him? Well, he was an orator hired by the German army, just like Hitler was, to speak. If Hitler died, maybe Otto Dinkel would have been the guy that would have gone on with this rabid anti-Semitism and wiped out 9 million people. Of course one thinks of those things, but you don't want to go back in time and play with events, because where we've come to today and the improvements we've made in human rights and in regarding ourselves as sacred, they've come because of the bad things that have happened. Now, if I went into the future, I would want to see where this planet is 300 years from now. Did we make it? Did we make it? That's what I would like to know.
I mean that from my knowledge of the world that I see around me, I think that it is much more likely that the reports of flying saucers are the result of the known irrational characteristics of terrestrial intelligence rather than the unknown rational efforts of extraterrestrial intelligence.
Interdimensionality, again, if you could move forward and backward in time and meet any personality, any public figure, celebrity, or politician, or mystical figure, is there anybody that you would like to sit down with? If you could have lunch with them, or just sit down and talk to them and have a discussion, forward and backward in time.
Oh, I'd love to spend an afternoon with Richard Feynman. Would love to sit down with Heisenberg, and of course, Einstein, Niels Bohr, Max Planck. I'd love to sit with the particulate, the quantum physics guys, because there really is the root of understanding how and why the world is the way it is, and the joy of these studies in antimatter that are occurring.
Everyone you picked is a physicist, a scientist, and I often think about how spirituality and science are merging, how they're kind of coming together. I mean, what ancient civilizations thought of a universe was really the Earth and the Sun and a few planets. And now with the advent of the Hubble telescope, we can see that the universe is far bigger than the ancients had ever imagined. So while science and religion are merging on some ideas, in other areas they're just far off. But to make matters even more complicated, the idea of parallel dimensions or parallel universes, I mean, it's just getting so vast out there. How do you map a multiverse?
I've talked to some guys, they say that fifth dimension, sixth dimension, could be right here by my ear and could be a millimeter wide and a millimeter across. You don't, because you're talking about, dimensions that defy any kind of dimensional understanding. And, there was I forget his name, he died recently, in the last 2 years, but he proposed that there are parallel realities just because of the way we go through time. Like, here we are in this interview right now. Well, what I said and what you said and what we all did 2 minutes ago still exists somewhere. Because we just did it. It's there. It's like a wake we've left. And if you had a time vehicle, you could go back to 2 minutes before and stop and see what we're doing 2 minutes before. You go back to your high school days. You go back to your days as an infant. And those realities are still existing alongside what we're progressing through. It's all a beautiful, beautiful mystery. I am here because I am a writer, a performer. I find it entertaining. I'm not a scientist. And I'm not a theosopher or a philosopher. And I am just here because it is enormously, enormously entertaining. And mysteries like this are challenging. And it's really, really fun to contemplate that, there may be beings out there who are concerned about our planet and who may give us the opportunity to advance ourselves. It's really fun to contemplate. All the physics that we know on this planet, quantum physics and conventional physics and metallurgy and all of it, it can really encompass a theory of how these ships move. I mean, you've done it yourself, David, proposing that if you can convert a mass to a state of photonic energy, then there is no mass anymore, and you're looking at pure light. You're looking at anti-gravity. You're looking at something that can be harnessed in waves. Well, what is the fuel? Well, people, Bob Lazar talked about this element 115 that was put into these generators to boil mercury and to be used as gravity tractors. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I mean, they must be using a fuel that's unavailable to us. Does it give off radioactive waste? What is the cost to them? For instance, the Venice UFO that you recently showed me, and I covet that tape. That's amazing. Because you see the metallic quality of the object, you see the force field around it, you see it spinning.
It was May 2nd, 2004, approximately 11:30 a.m. And I was walking from my apartment with my girlfriend down this alley right here. And we were just sort of walking this way, and I looked up over at those phone lines, and we saw something that we really couldn't make sense of. It was a very shiny, metallic disc. So we turned the corner here, and this is basically where we're just looking at it. And we're pretty much like, okay, that's not a balloon or anything we're familiar with. So we sort of kept walking to the corner and just stared at it for a while until it hit me, that this was really something. There was a man also looking at it, sort of a bystander, and he said, wow, do you guys see that? And that's when I realized all three of us were looking at something extraordinary.
What is the environmental cost of running these machines? Are they clean or are they not? Is there some, wherever they came from, is there some place they have to go back to after their journeys are finished to dump whatever they've used up in terms of fuel, like we would a bad fuel rod in a reactor? That is a question I'd like to know. I'd like to ask are you a clean burning vessel, or is there some cost that you pay like we paid for atomic energy?
When we consider that it may be possible to take mass and reduce it down to zero, make it as light as a photon, we can start to approach this whole light speed phenomena from a whole new direction. I mean, we're going to be able to do this. This is the only logical answer. There are no fissile nuclear materials in the universe as we know it to produce the kind of energies in a steady stream that you need to get mass up to that speed. There are no fissile nuclear fuels that can produce 1 trillion electron volts all day long. And wormholes are even more exotic. The idea of bending and folding two spaces of space-time together and creating a shortcut wormhole to vector in between those 2 points, according to Kip Thorne, who wrote Black Holes and Time Warps, that the energy required for a wormhole is 100 million suns, the negative energy they put out for an entire year. There are 100 million suns in our galaxy alone. That means all of the negative solar energy coming from our suns in this whole galaxy, the total energy for a whole year is required to create a wormhole. Where has any extraterrestrial civilization or our civilization going to get access to levels of energy that high? It's never going to happen. That's why I've reversed the table here. I said, you have to ultimately get frustrated with the idea of increasing energy en masse. You have to it's like banging your head against the wall and trying to cram it through the wall. You will never be able to do it this way. So the new way, as I've proposed, is to make this all possible. And when you consider UFOs coming in, stopping on a dime, and then accelerating and turning out into space, any Air Force pilot can tell you that stopping on a dime, the G-forces are going to throw you right through the walls.
Yeah, you'll be crushed.
And then sudden acceleration is going to do the same thing. It's going to destroy the body of the pilot. So this new approach and this new idea, I mean, this is just the inception, it's just the beginning, but I think this is really the only avenue that we can look down right now and the only way we can see solving this problem. While Gordon Cooper was an Air Force pilot stationed